Hello, everyone. Welcome to Briar House Writes. I'm Becky Parker, and today it is my honor to be able to have with us the wonderful poet laureate of the state of Iowa, Mr. Vince Gotera. Welcome to our program, Vince.
Thanks very much, Becky. I appreciate the privilege and the honor here to be able to talk to Briar House.
Vince, you are an incredibly gifted writer. You're also a musician, and you've been titled The Man with the Blue Guitar. Can you tell us a little bit about how you gained that title?
Oh, the title, you mean the title of the blog?
The name, you were called The Man with the Blue Guitar. Tell us a
Oh,
little bit
okay.
about that.
That happens to be the title of my blog, and I uh, I stole that from Wallace Stevens. It's not my particularly it's not one of my favorite poems, but I like the color blue, and I and yeah, so anyway, I stole that phrase from that poem, and also Pablo Picasso did a painting in his early career um, called something like "The Man with the Blue Guitar." And so, and I have blue guitars, so that's how that came to be. That title came to be.
How did you begin your journey with writing?
Oh my gosh. I wrote my first poem when I was 5 or 6 years old. Um, I'm from San Francisco, and my dad and I, on one very early morning, we were on a ferry boat, and I don't even remember why where we were going, but when you're a kid, you just go when your dad says, "Come over here," right? So
Right.
anyway, I was on this ferry boat, and I just remember looking up at the sun. I mean, momentarily, I guess, and this poem started to happen in my head, and I think I probably learned that from nursery rhymes, and I wrote a um, a poem that was in four line stanzas, quatrains, rhymed A B A B. I remember that much, and it was about the sun. I remember one detail was that it was a ball of gas. And I remember at that time I used to love to read science comic books, and so that was my education at that time. And I was probably in kindergarten or first grade, and my mom sent the poem to the school, and uh, and they put it in the school newsletter. And so I got my very first poem published as well. Unfortunately, I don't think we got it back because my mom saved everything, all my drawings and papers as a kid, and that poem's not in there. So I don't have it anymore. But anyway, I know about it. So that's how I got started. Um, in high school, I had English teachers that encouraged us to write poetry, and so I wrote some poetry then. But then in college, that was when I first took a poetry class, and it's all all up from there.
But do you have a particular genre that you like to write in? Because you write, both poetry, fiction, and nonfiction. Do you have any particular preference?
Uh, I prefer poetry definitely, just because you can get a poem done in one sitting. I haven't written fiction really for some quite some time, or literary nonfiction for that matter. But I am at the moment taking part in the Stafford Challenge, which is a program where people write a poem a day.
Do you have a particular preference? And
Oh,
with
okay.
your different types of writing that you have, and especially with the Stafford Challenge, you have to write it every day. Um, do you ever find that you're having any issues with your writing, any challenges that you have? And if so, how do you overcome them?
Okay. Well, backing up to the other question first, or the earlier question, I predominantly write rhymed and metered poetry, or if not rhymed and metered, in forms, in particular forms. And this is connected to your more recent question um, about challenges. I'm not a very disciplined guy, and I might go, for days without writing a poem. And so, something like the Stafford Challenge really gives me motivation, and accountability to write at least once a day. And And the prompts that we have in the April programs, that helps me a lot too. And I what I try to do is merge the NaPoWriMo prompt with the poem a day prompt. So every day it's it's a challenge just to get, so when I walk into it in the morning, um, I don't know what's going to happen, and I love it that way.
Do you have any of your culture and your lineage in your writing, and does that affect how you write?
Yes, I am Filipino ancestry, born and raised in San Francisco, as I said, but include a lot of Philippine culture and particularly Philippine myth. There are mythic monsters in the Philippines called aswang, and I have written a novel in poems that is the life um, of two aswang monsters. One is a shapeshifter, and the other is a vampire, and uh, and it's all about their lives together. Um, and that book is trying to get published right now. It's out there, getting looked at.
Well, Vince, would you care to read some of your work for us?
Sure, sure. In fact, I'll read something from my most recent book, Dragons and Ray Guns. And I'm really proud of this cover. My son, who's a graphic artist, did it, and I asked him to put in um, a dragon and a ray gun and make it look like a comic book, And I think he
Oh,
really
he
knows.
did. He nailed it. He did such a good job.
Yeah. Well,
And
he's a
does he
graphic.
get credit for being the illustrator of that? Do
Oh
you...
yeah, yeah. He's a graphic artist by trade, anyway. So yeah.
But
Um,
does he get like a free copy of your book? I mean, you know.
oh yeah. Um, what was I going to read you from this book? I thought I'd read um, a poem about. So these poems are science fiction, speculative poetry, science fiction, fantasy, and horror. This is called Horror Story. And this features a kind of aswang monster called a manananggal. And this is a woman that can split herself at the waist, and she grows wings, and she goes into the night to prey on infants or fetuses. And I think it was probably a myth that arose with people trying to explain miscarriages. But anyway, Um, okay, this is called Horror Story. The Manananggal lifted into the air, her leathery wings shimmering against the stars, twinkling in the heavens. Every light in the village twinkled as well, constellations above and below. She hovered softly outside an open window, the pregnant woman breathing evenly in her bed, unaware. The monster slipped her tongue, all 10 feet of it, into the window, snaking slowly. She could almost taste the woman's amniotic fluid, ever so sweet and pungent. Then, a few minutes later, the aswang flew silently away, sated, satisfied, full of new life. The next morning, a miscarriage, everyone would call it, so sad. The aswang then turned back into an ordinary woman, living her safe, uneventful life in plain sight. A tame girl hardly anyone noticed, but every night she became a fierce hunter. So the Aswang are all like that. They're all just regular people that you would see every day, and then at night they become monsters.
Do you ever, when you write, Vince, do you ever dream at night about these characters, what they actually might look like?
Unfortunately, for many, many years now, I've not been able to remember my dreams. I sometimes wake up and think, "Oh, I had one," but I don't remember them. And occasionally I do, and sometimes they enter poems. For example, some years ago, my father, who'd been dead, for some time, for quite a few years, appeared in my dream, and one that I remembered, obviously. And the whole time I was the person I was in the dream was myself as a teenager. And and so or maybe 20s, and all I did, I and that was there were two. I was myself. I was in my 60s, and I was inside this guy, and he just kept talking and talking, and my dad never got a chance to say anything, and I really regretted that, or not regretted. I was very sad after that dream because I wanted to hear my dad's voice, you
Mhm.
know, and instead, I remember I remember saying to the young guy I was, "Stop talking, let him say something."
Yeah, like
Yeah.
Ixnay, be quiet so I can hear my dad.
I'll do one from Dragons and or a couple from this book, and then maybe one from my previous book. Um, this first one is called Dragon Flight. Oh, maybe some of these post-it notes lead to it.
That might be a clue.
Well, it's from a previous reading. Yeah, it did. It went right to it. Number one. Okay. Dragon Flight. Under the salt moon, I fly up, feather light and musk scented. Thunder is a brusque intruder in my reverie. My wings pivot me into lightning, the ether sparking across my wingtips, electric flame in my wake, fiery spitballs spinning. The sky strewn with pebbled clouds, rough tree bark wind buffeting my scales, glowing coals like gold vermilion blossoms. I roar loud, sing arias into brisk air, bright blue sparks. Ain't this some livin'? Um, So that's one of the dragon poems. I'll read a ray gun poem. This is called, that other poem, the Dragonflight poem, by the way, was or is, I should say, a curtal sonnet. I forgot for a moment what the form is. And that's a form that was invented in the 1800s by Gerard Manley Hopkins. And I write quite a lot in curtal sonnets. They're only 10 and a half lines, and they're very um, intricately rhymed. And then I do them as decasyllabic, so exact 10 syllables. Um, okay, here's Time Lord Thief. This is a ray gun poem. And I wrote this poem because I had decided to create this book, and I thought, oh, I don't have that many ray gun poems. So I started writing ray gun poems. And this is set in the Doctor Who universe, but it's not the Doctor. It's another Time Lord. And it's in a form that I invented uh, back in the 70s when I was in college. And it's a sonnet form, and it's made up of haiku, four haiku, and then a couplet. And then it's rhymed in terza-rima, um, which is Dante's rhyme scheme. All right,
Nice.
Time Lord Thief. One, I've had an interest in ray guns since I was 5 when I saw my first. Father shot a live bird dead, right between the eyes. A needle hole gave the lone hint of why the bird had died. I was hooked. Not long after, I began to collect ray guns from the famous and infamous, intrigued by how anyone could end a life so quick on command. 2. I tried to visit many warriors and spacemen's chronotopes, planets and ships, for a chance to steal their weapons. Phasers hijacked from Captains Kirk, Picard, blasters from Han Solo, Chewbacca, and Marvin of Mars, his trusty Acme pistol. Paralyzer gun made by Doc Zarkov for Flash Gordon, once Tarzan. My TARDIS filled with ray guns. 3. Friends, my life has stood, a loaded ray gun, fully charged and ready, good for battle, truly primed. On Earth, I'm like Loki, the trickster, woolly, wild, ghost-like, smoky. I drift like the breeze. You won't see me, way low key. That's how I've purloined these celebrity ray guns, magicked and siphoned in mystical elegance. I'm gone. and so is your ray gun. So this is my previous book, The Coolest Month, and all of the poems in this book were written in April. And so over like 8 years of Aprils, and so the book has dates, and so this poem was written specifically on April 3rd of some year, and uh, and then in the back there are notes about how each poem was how each poem happened. Um,
And was that in response to the quote that April is the cruelest month?
yes, yes, I'm making fun of T.S. Eliot. You know, I never understood. I mean, no, I did understand why that line exists, but it always seemed a little bit silly to me. Um, here is I'm going to read or show you rather. This is a concrete poem in the book. That's April 9th. Um,
It was called Guitar Dreams.
yes, April 9th. The prompt was one prompt was for a visual poem, and the other prompt was for a work poem. I wonder if I can read it off the screen. No, I can't. Sorry. All right, Guitar Dreams. Work, work, work. To me is A sharp, D flat, C minor, E ninth, G sixth, or F sharp major seventh. Oh, I wish I could be some other thing. Would, yes, but large and important. Maybe a windmill, or a skyscraper, or a ship. Sigh. B minor seven. Yawn. So the chord, the
It looks just like a guitar. That's so cool.
yeah, and the chords. I needed a lot of two letter words, you know, and so that's what I use that for.
It's very creative. And the fact that you're a musician is really neat too.
Yeah, I've played guitar for about, let's see, about 61 years now, and also then have played bass for 40 plus years.
Has
And I'm
it
now a
been?
bass player in a band.
And you also drum. I read that you are a drummer too.
Yeah, not as well as the other two.
But Vince, there are so many kids that pick up a guitar, or they may have an electric piano in the corner of their office that they've been looking at for the past, I don't know, ever. So, but how do you get from where you can just get that guitar to work and do what you want it to do instead of just becoming this clanging cymbal that's not working? How do you
Well,
manage?
the guitar to me is interesting in that regard because you can learn to play fairly decently in about a week, you know, enough like to play three chord rock songs, you know, um, um, but then also it takes a lifetime to get good at it. And so it's yeah, it's fascinating in that way, and you know, keeps me grounded and also keeps me interested.
There are some people that when they're writing their poetry, they hear the music and then they begin to write the words. How do you do that? Do you ever formulate your poetry through a song that you like a tune that you hear?
Never. Never. In fact, people always ask me, you know, do you write songs? And I don't. I have written some songs, but they're instrumental, or else they're using other people's words. And so, no, for me, there's really no connection in the way that you're saying. Um, the music that I have in my words is completely connected to sound, to vowels and consonants. And so I use a lot of sound play. And I have on occasion written a poem while listening to a song, though I haven't done that for, gosh, for decades. Um, um, and I definitely don't do it to to music with words, because then the words get in, the words I'm hearing get in the way of what I'm producing.
Because some authors they don't like it silent when they write. They want to hear some type of music playing in the background. Some people write in coffee shops. they write all kinds of things. Do you have a particular process that you know when you're writing that your work is complete, or do you edit for a while?
Um, I've gotten with all of these poem a day things, I've gotten pretty good at getting a close to finished poem, maybe an hour or a little more. And then I might tweak it a little bit during the day, but not very much.
Talking about like your different techniques with your writing because everyone has a different one. And so
Yeah,
my
yeah.
question would be, what advice would you give to that burgeoning writer and that or that burgeoning musician that really would like to be able to hone their craft, but they're not they're really struggling to even get the words out because they don't have your skill. So how do you hone that skill? Because you're a
Well,
professor. You're not just a professor, but a professor emeritus. So of creative writing. So
yeah.
how do you hone that skill?
Well, my message that, I've been going around Iowa talking about poetry, reading poetry, and so on. And my message is really a very simple one that poetry can be fun. I think a lot of times people, especially poets, can be pretty dang serious about it. And um, I actually get this from Lucille Clifton, who felt the same way that poetry should be for enjoyment. Of course, it does many other things, more philosophical, address philosophical questions, say, but you can do that and still have fun, I think. And so it's not that poems are funny, but that poems can bring us just to a lighter side of life, and um, and so that's what I do tell young poets is that just have fun. Don't worry about, making a fancy poem. That'll come, with practice. I get this from William Stafford. Happened to be during the Stafford Challenge, but I've I've loved this advice from Stafford for a long time. Stafford said that if you get writer's block, I'm paraphrasing. Stafford said if you have writer's block, lower your standards. If you still have writer's block, lower your standards some more. In other words, we uh, we edit ourselves. We restrain ourselves or constrain ourselves, and forget about that. Just get something down.
Are you a member of any kind? I know that you belong to it, like you're doing the Stafford Challenge and the NAPO, but are you a member of any like critique group or anything or any other poet laureates that you connect with on a regular basis just to kind of be, you know, with each other?
That's a great question, and the answer is no.
You're a
I
loner.
I am, and I find that sometimes it really depends on the personalities in the critique group, and I haven't been in a critique group in a long, long time, but um, sometimes or often I think in critique, well, as an artist, as a poet, you get to a certain point where other people's advice doesn't work for you because they don't understand what you're doing, in a deep way. And so no, I haven't been in critique groups. I have actual, well, with the Stafford Challenge, we have small groups. And so I'm in a small group there of about 10 poets. But we don't tend to critique each other. It's more of a community kind of thing.
Well, and I think that with the being a poet laureate, you're and with the state of Iowa, I bet you have the most interesting experiences being able to hear other people's writing styles that may not match yours, but it sounds like that you encourage them to just express themselves.
Oh, absolutely. I was just a featured poet in the Poetry Palooza Festival earlier this month. And the other poets who were there, that was Jane Wong and Ross Gay and Kelsey Bigelow. We were the four featured poets, and we gave a reading together. And it was such a wonderful reading because all of our styles and topics were so different. And I just love that, about poetry and about poetry community.
When you are in an open mic situation, and you've done it forever, even being a professor, do you ever get butterflies before you go on stage?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I have a poem that I've done for well, I wrote it about 40 years ago called Gawain's Rap. And it's a poem spoken by the knight of King Arthur, King Arthur's Round Table, Sir Gawain. And and I did that this past in Poetry Palooza. I did that playing guitar, accompanying myself on guitar, which makes sense because it's a rap poem. And yeah, that was quite fun. But anyway, that's a poem that I use often to begin an event.
Kind of like gets the crowd stirred up a little.
Well,
Okay. Because
yeah,
people love music and they can relate to something that has
yes,
music on.
yes, and also because um, just because it's something unexpected usually for people, and as part of that, poetry can be fun thing.
Yeah, and people can remember when, oh, he played his guitar.
This is my blog, Man with the Blue Guitar, and this is today's poem. Um, so the prompts were take the phrase blank day, replace the blank with a word or phrase, make that the title, and then write your poem.
Oh,
I did that. And then the other prompt was to write a poem in which something that normally unfolds in a set and well understood way goes haywire, but is described as if it's all very normal. Right. So, as usual, I merged the prompts rather, and I'm using a little Spanish form, poetic form, which is called a shadorma, and it's syllable counts of 3, 5, 3, 3, 7, and 5. Very tight form. Hard to do just because you have such small space. All right. What a day. Everything went wrong. Bacon burned, TV died, car totaled, freak windstorm tree hit the house. But I'm still walking. And then here's a picture I took.
oh, so it really happened.
Sorry?
It really happened.
No, it didn't really happen. That's all fictional. But back in 2009, we had a weird windstorm here, and I went around and took pictures of. So here's a tree that maybe could have hit the house. I don't know.
Wow. I love though that you use different forms and you really turn it into something really amazing.
Well, thank you very much.
I love the fact that with the different forms, you're not afraid to mix them all together. Like you mix a haiku with a sonnet, you put it in there.
Mm.
Um, w- when you are writing these, you say that you're not, you kind of don't write discipline type, you're not disciplined, that the other thing, but gosh, it takes so much technique to be able to merge those different ones together, especially when you're doing the different, the cadence, the A, B, all of that with that. Um,
Becky, I'm the discipline for me comes in the wrestling with form. Um, what I said earlier about being undisciplined is, I mean, starting a poem. It's like I rather watch The Last of Us than start a poem sometimes.
you really do have the neatest way of writing, and the fact that you can take such a terribly all these events together, and you're like, but I'm still walking. So you ended on a positive note, because so many people are really discouraged when they have Murphy's Law as their daily friend that walks with them wherever they go. Well, Vince, what if you could change anything about this world, what would it be?
Man, when you sent me that question in the list of questions, I was like, oh, I don't know. Um, I think my what I would love to see change is not really about the world as such, but just about people around us. I just wish that people were nicer, and honestly nice, and just treat everyone else with respect. That's it.
And Vince, what would you want your legacy to be when 100 years, when people are reading your work in a holographic form? What do you want them to take away from your work?
Wow. I don't know about that one. Um, I would hope that they would just enjoy my poetry. That's what I try to do. Try to lift people's spirits. And so I guess that would be it.
I think that's a great answer. Well, Vince, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us here today at Briar House Writes. I encourage everyone to look on his blog. Check out the videos on YouTube, though, with and type in Vince Gotera interview because he's got some great poetry readings from all over. So, Vince, thank you again so much.
Thank you, Becky.